The drums echoed through the kingdom of Aloran, announcing the return of Prince Chitty. After years of training in faraway lands, he was back to claim his rightful place as crown prince. The entire kingdom buzzed with excitement as people lined the streets, eager to catch a glimpse of the prince. But there was a condition. He had to marry before he could be crowned. His parents, King Obina and Queen Neka, had already chosen a wife for him, Lady Adora, the daughter of a wealthy chief. She was beautiful and well-educated, but there was a problem. She had no respect for the common people. She looked down on palace workers and treated them like dirt. Chitty watched her carefully, noticing how she never smiled at the servants, never acknowledged the people who cooked her meals or cleaned her chambers. His heart was uneasy. At first, Prince Chitty tried to ignore the unease growing in his heart. Adora was the perfect choice on paper, high status, well-mannered in public, and respected by the noble families. But there were cracks in the illusion. One evening, as they walked through the royal gardens, an injured beggar approached, pleading for help. Without hesitation, Adora turned up her nose and stepped back. "Guards, remove this filth at once," she snapped. Chitty's heart sank. Was this the woman he was expected to marry? The final disgrace came during an important festival when an elderly chief mistakenly spilled palm wine on Adora's dress. Instead of handling it with grace, Adora insulted him in front of everyone. "You foolish old man. Do you know how expensive this dress is?" she shouted. The crowd fell silent. The king's face darkened. That day, he knew Adora could never be queen. Determined to find a better wife for his son, King Obina and Queen Neka organized a contest. Young women from noble families were invited to compete. After many rounds, 3 finalists were chosen: Ifeanyi, Kayamika, and Oluchi. All were beautiful, but none had the qualities of a good queen. Ifeanyi could not cook or do anything on her own. She only cared about riches. She spent her days shopping and flaunting her wealth, making sure everyone knew about her expensive clothes and jewelry. She had no interest in charity or the struggles of the kingdom's people, and she often belittled those she considered beneath her. She also despised physical labor, never lifting a finger to help others, and expected to be pampered at all times. Kayamika was always on her phone, snapping pictures and gossiping, too lazy to lift a finger. During important royal gatherings, she barely paid attention, preferring instead to scroll through her social media pages. She avoided any form of responsibility and showed no concern for palace matters, often making excuses to avoid even the simplest tasks. Worse still, she had a habit of speaking rudely to elders, seeing them as outdated and unimportant. Oluchi, though quiet and mysterious, was rumored to visit a native doctor in secret. Whispers spread among the palace staff that she had tried to use charms to win the prince's heart. Some even claimed they saw her leaving offerings at crossroads at night. When questioned about it, she would smile slyly and dismiss the accusations, but the unease around her never faded. Additionally, she was known for having a temper, lashing out at anyone who questioned her. While everyone focused on these 3 women, nobody paid attention to Nkem, a poor orphan who worked as a maid in the palace. She was humble, hardworking, and kind. She cooked the best meals in the palace, but never sought attention. Unlike the noble women, she was not impressed by gold and riches. Nkem's life had been one of sorrow from the start. Born into a poor family, she lost her parents at a young age when a severe illness swept through their village. With no relatives willing to care for her, she was forced to fend for herself. She often went days without food, relying on the kindness of strangers. When she was barely 10 years old, a cruel widow took her in, not out of love but to use her as a servant. Nkem worked tirelessly from dawn to dusk, scrubbing floors, fetching water and cooking meals she was rarely allowed to eat. If she ever slowed down, beatings followed. One fateful night, unable to bear the endless suffering, Nkem ran away. She wandered for days before arriving in the capital, weak and starving. A kind palace guard found her lying near the market square and took her to the palace, where she was given a chance to work as a maid. Though life was still hard, she was at least treated with some level of dignity. But the scars of her past remained. She never spoke of the horrors she had endured, only focusing on working hard and staying unnoticed. Prince Chitty often found himself watching her. She was different, gentle but strong, simple yet graceful. One evening, he overheard some ladies mocking her. "She is just a maid. How can she even dream of being noticed?" one said. "She belongs in the kitchen," the other laughed. Before Nkem could walk away in shame, Prince Chitty stepped forward. "And what is wrong with the kitchen? At least she knows how to cook and has a kind heart. That is more than I can say for some." The ladies fell silent. Nkem was shocked. Nobody had ever defended her like that. After that day, Nkem found herself thinking about the prince. He was different from the arrogant nobleman she had seen, and slowly she realized she was falling in love with him. But instead of feeling happy, she grew uneasy. She became more conscious of herself around him, avoiding eye contact and keeping her distance. Every time he was near, her heart raced, and she struggled to remain composed. It scared her. How could she, a mere maid, have feelings for a prince? The thought was ridiculous, and she wished the feelings would go away. She told only one person, her closest friend in the palace, another maid named Adana. But Adana shook her head. "Nkem, don't dream of what you cannot have. He is a prince. We are nothing but maids." Nkem tried to ignore the sadness in her heart, but Adana's words stayed with her. With time, Nkem did her best to bury her feelings. She threw herself into her work, waking up earlier and staying up later to distract herself. She avoided places where she might run into the prince, choosing instead to focus on her duties in the kitchen. She convinced herself it was for the best. The prince belonged to another world, one where she could never fit in. Meanwhile, Prince Chitty also began to feel something strange. He found himself seeking Nkem out more often, though he could not explain why. He admired her grace and humility, yet something held him back. Could he truly fall in love with a mere maid? Prince Chitty found himself in deep confusion. He had never questioned his duty before, but now, every time he thought of marriage, Nkem's face came to mind instead of the noble lady's. He told himself it was just admiration for her hard work and kindness, but he knew there was something more. Yet, how could he love a mere maid? His parents expected him to marry a noblewoman, not someone from the kitchens. The pressure from the king and queen increased. They constantly asked him which of the 3 contestants he would choose, but he delayed his decision. During dinners, his parents watched him closely, expecting him to bond with Ifeanyi, Kayamika, or Oluchi. But none of them stirred his heart. They were beautiful, yes, but lacked the warmth he sought in a queen. Nkem noticed how often the prince's gaze lingered on her, but she refused to believe it meant anything. She worked even harder to avoid him, focusing only on her duties. Yet, no matter how much she tried, her heart betrayed her. Each time he spoke to her, her pulse quickened. The more she tried to forget, the deeper her feelings grew. The royal family arranged another banquet for the 3 contestants to showcase their qualities. Ifeanyi spent most of the time talking about her luxurious lifestyle, barely acknowledging anyone beneath her status. Kayamika barely looked up from her phone, scrolling and giggling at messages instead of paying attention to the elders. Oluchi, on the other hand, arrived with suspicious charms tied around her wrists. When questioned about it, She claimed it was for protection. The elders exchanged worried glances, doubting the suitability of these women. Queen Neka, though initially blinded by status, began to notice the prince's hesitation. She also observed how, despite the noble ladies failing the test of character, one person in the palace remained graceful, hard-working, and respectful, Nkem. But she dismissed the thought. A maid could never be queen. One afternoon, a young servant accidentally spilled water on Oluchi's dress. Furious, Oluchi slapped the girl across the face. The little girl burst into tears. Before anyone could intervene, Nkem rushed forward, shielding the girl. "It was just an accident," she said firmly. "She meant no harm." Prince Chidi had been watching from a distance. Seeing Nkem stand up for the weak filled him with admiration. In that moment, he realized something. Nkem was everything a queen should be. Despite this revelation, Chidi struggled with his emotions. His mind was at war with his heart. Could he truly go against tradition and choose a maid over noblewomen? Meanwhile, Nkem overheard gossip among the palace staff. Some whispered that the prince was looking at her differently. Fear gripped her heart. She couldn't dare to hope. With the selection day drawing near, Ifeanania, Kayamika, and Oluchi all tried to gain favor with the prince. Ifeanania gifted him gold, hoping to impress him with wealth. Kayamika tried to flirt, believing beauty would win him over. Oluchi, in desperation, visited the native doctor for stronger charms. Yet, Chidi felt nothing for them. One night, unable to keep her emotions bottled up, Nkem confided in Adana again. "I think I love him," she whispered. But Adana shook her head. "Forget it, Nkem. A prince can never marry a maid. It's impossible." Nkem wiped her tears and made a decision. She would kill her feelings. It was foolish to hope for something that could never be. The day finally arrived for Prince Chidi to announce his choice. The entire kingdom gathered, waiting in anticipation. The three contestants sat with proud smiles, believing one of them would be chosen. But the prince took a deep breath and declared, "I choose none of them." Gasps filled the air. Whispers spread like wildfire. Who, then, would be his bride? Chidi turned toward the kitchen. All eyes followed his gaze. There, standing in shock, was Nkem. "I choose Nkem," he announced. Silence. Then, murmurs of disbelief. The king and queen were frozen in place. A maid? A mere servant? But the prince stood firm. Outrage erupted. Nobles protested. The other contestants stormed out in anger. The king's face was unreadable. "A maid?" he asked in disbelief. Chidi nodded. "She has the heart of a queen. She is the only one worthy." Nkem couldn't believe it. Was this a dream? Had she misheard? She looked to Adana, who was just as stunned. The ground beneath her felt unsteady. Could she accept this? Did she dare dream? Queen Neka was furious. "A commoner can never be queen," she declared. "Our people will never accept it." But Chidi stood firm. "They will, in time. Let them see her as I see her." Fear filled Nkem's heart. She had already resigned herself to never being with him. Could she handle the weight of a crown? Could she handle the scorn of the nobles? King Obina watched the crowd, then studied his son. He had never seen Chidi so certain about anything. Finally, he raised his hand for silence. "If she is truly worthy, she will prove it in a final test," he declared. The final test was set. Nkem had to prove she could handle royal responsibilities. She had to lead in the palace, solve disputes, and gain the respect of the people. If she failed, Chidi would have to choose another. Nkem, though overwhelmed, did not back down. She listened to the people's concerns, helped settle disputes, and even won the hearts of the market women by organizing fair trade practices. Despite her efforts, some nobles still resisted her. They believed a queen had to be born into wealth. Nkem faced insults and whispers, but she held her head high. Oluchi, bitter and desperate, sought revenge. She consulted the native doctor once more, asking for a way to remove Nkem from the prince's heart forever. Oluchi's plan was set in motion. She would try to poison Nkem. But fate had other plans. On the night of the final test, Oluchi's treachery was uncovered. A maid overheard her plans and alerted the palace guards. She was caught before she could harm Kem. Oluchi was brought before the king, her crimes laid bare. Furious, the king banished her from the kingdom. A queen must be pure of heart, he declared. With Oluchi gone and Kem having won the people's love, the king finally gave his blessing.
She is worthy, he announced.
At last, Nkem allowed herself to believe. She loved Chitty, and he loved her. Against all odds, they had found each other. The wedding was the grandest the kingdom had ever seen. People from all over came to celebrate. The once-forgotten maid now stood as their queen. As Prince Chitty and Queen Nkem stood before their people, love shone in their eyes. They had fought against tradition, against doubt, and against fear. In the end, love had won. And so, they ruled together, bringing kindness and fairness to the land. And they lived happily ever after.